MFG Productions.
When people think of Jim Crow, they think of a lot of things and situations. And many people have been under the assumption that Jim Crow was an actual person, and that's not necessarily true. In the 1830s, the white actor Thomas Dartmouth Rice was propelled to stardom for performing minstrel routines as the fictional Jim Crow, a satire of a clumsy, dim-witted black slave. Rice claimed to have first created the character after witnessing an elderly black man singing a tune called Jump Jim Crow in Louisville, Kentucky. He later appropriated the Jim Crow persona into a minstrel act where he donned blackface and performed jokes and songs in a stereotypical slave dialect. These laws lasted an astonishing 100 years from the post-Civil War era until 1968. Many blacks, especially black men, were constantly the victim of racist acts in many ways, shape, and form. We've all heard of Mr. Emmett Till, but throughout the history of Jim Crow era and the crazy, ridiculous things young, middle-aged, and even old black men have been accused of is stories that never get told, and some people you never hear about. And I want you guys to meet Mr. Matt Ingram. Some may call him Mack Ingram, but he himself was a victim of Jim Crow and was given a not as drastic punishment as Emmett Till, but in all terms, it was a true act of racism. Putting all into context, in this era of history, blacks, especially black men, had to look down to the ground if a white man walked by. And if a white woman walked by, they had to walk in the street. So keeping all that in context, let's look at Mr. Mack Ingram and his situation. Mack Ingram was born June 6, 1907 to Isam and Elsie Ingram in North Carolina. There was not much about his childhood or his life for that matter, other than the fact that he got married October 21st, 1933 to Linwood Jeffers, and him and Miss Jeffers had 8 children together. Mr. Ingram made his living working as a sharecropper. Around Caswell County, North Carolina, he was known as the quote-unquote good Negro, even saving his money to buy his own mule and tools. In my opinion, in that time, he was doing pretty good for himself, being able to support his family and fund his own buys to get stuff that he needed for his craft. But then this happened. Keep in mind, this is 1951. The Emmett Till murder wouldn't have happened for another 4 years. Martin Luther King Jr. was 22 years old. Malcolm X was 26. Just to put these things in perspective, there's not a particular date attached when this happened, but all I know is that this happened in the month of June of 1951. On that said day in June, he stopped by his white neighbor, Aubrey Boswell's house to see if he could borrow his truck to haul some hay. Ingram saw one of Boswell's children walking towards the tobacco barn carrying a hoe. He walked across the road, he said, and through a field in knee-high corn looking for Boswell. When he got closer and saw only 3 boys, he turned back. He went on down the road and borrowed the trailer from someone else. Later that afternoon, 2 deputy sheriffs arrested him. One of the boys, they said, was a 17-year-old Willa Jean Boswell dressed in dungarees and a terrapin shell hat. Farmer Ingram was charged with assault and the intent to commit rape against her. The defense had only one point to make. What did he do? Willa Jean said, he kept watching me. Just how close did Ingram get to her? Willa Jean wasn't sure. Within 25 to 50 feet, she thought. Prosecutor W. Banks Horton argued that Ingram must have been trying to heat her off, that young womanhood must be protected from quote-unquote niggers. But Recorder Vernon, who is a farmer with no formal legal training, could plainly see that there was no ground for a charge of attempted rape. If there were, the case would have to go before a superior court and a jury. Instead, he found Ingram guilty of assault on a female and sentenced him to the maximum 2 years of hard labor on the roads. The verdict didn't even make the local newspaper, but outsiders got wind of it. Caswell County was deluged with inquiries, one even from the U.S. State Department. The Daily Worker seized on it. The NAACP, after first making sure that the communists' legal beagle didn't get in on the case, decided to help Ingram on his appeal. Monday, November 24th, 1952, for the third time in 17 months, Mack Ingram, North Carolina Negro farmer, went on trial, charged with assault of a 17-year-old tobacco grower's daughter, although he had not been within 50 feet of her at the time. In the first trial, in the recorder's court, Ingram explained that he had mistaken Blue Jean Willie Jean Boswell for one of her brothers, started to follow her across the street at Cornfield to ask if he could borrow the family trailer. When she took fright and ran, he turned back to his car. The judge, acting on the basis of North Carolina law that says assault can be committed even without physical contact, sentenced Ingram to 2 years in jail. That following November, Ingram's appeal went before a mixed jury, 4 Negroes and 8 whites. In the state superior court, when 2 of the Negro jurors held out for acquittal, the court ordered a mistrial. The following week, an all-white jury of Yanceyville reviewed the evidence again. The tobacco grower's daughter, now married and the mother of a 6-month-old child, insisted that Ingram had leered at her. The jury's verdict, guilty. The court sentenced a suspended 6-month jail term and 5 years probation. He was the last person known in U.S. history to be charged with this kind of crime, technically speaking. In the name of the crime, you ask? Reckless eyeballing.